Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League. We are here in the Playins, first week of that section of the competition, where we have got Mega Gaming Wildcard taking on University of Michigan JV. My name is Gordo. I am joined tonight by Nyarko. And Nyarko, are you ready to get these play-ins started as we are hopping right into picks and bans?
Oh, 100% ready to get this one started off. These are two great teams looking to keep their hopes alive to enter into those playoffs and make some big decisions here in this first draft phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the admin team over at Aegis. Really like this play-in format that we've decided to go with. This split, the gauntlet style over the Swiss style that we saw last season. Super exciting here, and means that we are getting elimination matches as soon as week number one. You can get into a little more detail about that later, as Omega Gaming is going to lock in the Jace first pick here. You got to believe that's going to be going over to Axum.
Yeah, Jace is a big powerhouse that has dominated conversations for ranged top laners here, especially in the higher levels of play. Their ability to just output so much poke damage and soften people up for fights means that they are a fantastic pick to bring to 5v5 scenarios. But also, there have been people that continue to rush Hullbreaker on the champion, even after those nerfs came through in patch 12.5 that impacted the ranged top laners. I know that there's a few people that still pledge allegiance to the split pushing strategy, but I think that given the way that we've seen Omega Gaming Wildcards play out these last few games here in this split, this is probably going to be a much more teamfight oriented pick here, as Viego will be locked in for the other side.
Yeah, Viego and Ornn coming through as the rotation from UMish, definitely going to be making this a little bit more of a scaling team composition here. They got the Viego in the jungle, the Ornn in the top lane, presumably. Got to see a little bit of Viego top lane earlier in this season, but not likely going to be the location going this time around. Going to give them some heavy engage and going to be a pretty good neutralizing matchup up against the Jace. You do expect, though, that Axum is really going to be taking the fight to this Ornn early on and try to punish that more passive pick, as the Trundle going to be locked on in for the jungle is going to be I Am Javi, taking off that Xin Zhao that he's played so much this season as it came through the ban list.
And I really do love this pickup. I don't think that Trundle is necessarily the best into a Viego, but it's such an independently strong pick that I'm perfectly happy to see it brought out here by Omega Gaming Wildcard. Nautilus going to continue kind of this lineage of solid engage alongside big kind of tanky champions here. Probably going to be going into that support role for I Suck, I Suck, I Suck. This is a champion that I really love to see here in combination with things like the Jace, because they're able to really get things started super solidly, and when combined with a big fighter like the Trundle there, you'll also just be able to continue to CC people and prevent that champion from getting kited out. It will be answered in turn by the Karma here for University of Michigan JV. Really solid counter response to the Nautilus is something that we've been seeing quite a bit here. Karma is able to do a ton of damage early and just kind of soften this Nautilus up due to the range advantage that the Karma affords, get it under control, and kind of deter really big splashy fights from occurring there in the bot side as we move into the second stage of bans.
Yeah, Tout's been a big fan of that Karma throughout this season, and has been usually pairing it up with the Ezreal, especially here in the bottom lane, for instant. That's going to get banned away here, as we're seeing an unusual draft for 2022, where none of the AD carries are going to get locked in the first rotation. That means Ezreal, Jinx, and Jhin all going to hit the ban list in the second phase here. Some picks still hovering around to keep in mind are going to be that Aphelios, are going to be that Caitlyn, but we really are kind of moving down the tier list here, as usually these picks get locked in earlier on than that. So curious to see how deep these guys' champion pools really go, as that's going to be a Seraphine lock-in, could be for mid lane, could be for bottom, along with that Karma, although that could leave Viego as the only source of AD damage. You got to believe that they're going to want to diversify a little bit more than that.
Yeah, University of Michigan kind of paralleling a lot of the trends that we see here in the Aegis Vanguard lead, although as you were saying right there, Gordo, this selection process is a little bit different than what is standard right now. Seraphine and Karma are two big flex picks that we've been seeing coming out, especially as the season has progressed forward. Karma, just a huge lane bully, able to work in a solo lane. But similarly, Seraphine is a champion that you can do a lot with when you get a substantial gold income on her. Either you rush those cheaper support items, or you can kind of build into a Leandry style composition where you're able to kind of burn down some of these beefier champions like the Trundle or Nautilus. So right now, this selection will just kind of allow for them to keep Omega Gaming wildcards on their toes, as they will be locking in the Ashe as their AD carry here. This kind of is one of those picks that we don't see a whole lot, especially at the higher elos, but given how pinched the pool has become, given to the fact that both teams have opted to choose their marksman here in the bottom part of the draft, I think this is a pretty solid pickup. It will allow for them to just get solid lockdown on individual targets. I'd really be looking to see that arrow come down and either get dropped onto something like the Seraphine or the Viego. And the Syndra hover, a little bit interesting here. This might mean a Seraphine ADC, or APC as it were.
Yeah, it does look like it is going to be that Seraphine bot lane. This is one that's been coming up a little bit more, and always feels like it's hovering around the edges of this level of competition. This Masters Plus organized play doesn't usually make the breakthrough into pro, but around this level is where it usually seems to thrive. We even got to see earlier today in Proving Grounds, Winthrop University busted out that Seraphine bot lane already. So that's something that is not unique just to this Yumish JV squad, but it's certainly going to be powerful for them in that bottom lane. It's going to be farming with the Karma and the support role. They're going to have those double enchanter setups to try to empower this Viego. You do have to be a little bit concerned about damage though in these later game fights. Trundle and Nautilus, they're going to be big beefy boys, and you're reliant on Viego plus Syndra to really carry the bulk of that damage, and you're reliant on Viego to be really your main source of AD damage as well. So Trundle, expecting him to go for that Spirit Visage to really be thriving in that sustained style that he already wants to go for. Maybe even throw a Force of Nature in there as well, and it's going to be pretty tough to work your way through this guy if you don't set him super far behind early on.
Yeah, definitely. I think that right now University of Michigan has to just focus really heavily upon getting enough gold onto the Seraphine so they can, in fact, build a little bit more damage oriented. They could still maybe go Moonstone first item, but I would like to see them at least go for something like an Archangel Staff later on. But if it is the case that we do see that full double support bot lane come through, they're going to have to utilize Karma's early game power to continually poke out the Ashe and harass that lane, and then later on just set up for really solid Wombo combos. You have Call of the Forged God that dovetails really, really nicely with Encore, and that hopefully will be enough CC to allow for Viego to really enter into the fight and be selective about the targets of his damage here. And Syndra obviously is a champion that we see a ton of it here in the mid lane. Really big staple, great ability to just kind of burst out single targets, and if you get really good orb setups going, you can be real terror in team fights as well.
Yeah, and really going to be having eyes on the top lane for this matchup here, as the gauntlet has been thrown down against Cthulhu Reborn here. They ban the Gragas, they ban the Tahm Kench, they ban the Malphite, all of which, could be potentially going up towards that top lane. The Tahm Kench maybe a little bit more support-oriented, but they ban out all of these safe top lane tanks, and then they first pick the Jace here. He does find another safe top lane tank to default to, but it might be one that, is a little bit farther down the totem pole, and it's one that gets countered out pretty substantially by this Trundle if he just gets the Subjugate on him. So really curious to see how Cthulhu Reborn's going to navigate this lane, as well as Axum here, as Axum's had a ton of draft resources put into giving him a strong matchup in that top lane, and him being able to get ahead early. There's scaling, nothing to scoff at with this Vanguard and this Ashe and this Trundle, but Omega has really put a lot of eggs in the Axeman slamming lane basket. I want to see if that's going to work out for them.
Yeah, I love how both of these teams kind of organized and worked through this draft, but I do think that Omega Gaming Wildcard, by targeting Cthulhu Reborn as heavily as they did early on, created a little bit of a tempo advantage in the champions that we see picked up here. Sure, they too decided to go for an ADC here in the second round of picks, but by solidifying that Jace top lane, which is both a comfort pick for Axum as well as just a very strong champion right now, and then going into a Trundle, you already have a really solid core of damage and fighting to kind of build the rest of your team around here, and that's why we may have seen a little bit more of utility-oriented ADC here in the form of Ashe come through. Veigar similarly has really good catch potential. That baby cage, when combined with the CC that comes out of Ashe and the Nautilus, will really help to lock down some of these more squishy members that come through for University of Michigan. But both teams still working towards really solid win cons, taking the ban rate and the choices on the chin here and really being reactive to one another is great to see, and a pretty good message surrounding how good both of these teams have performed throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely here. And remember, this is going to be an elimination match here in the play-ins. We are going with this gauntlet format. So, as everybody should know at this point, we've got two teams from each group. The top two have qualified straight through into those playoffs. They're going to be playing for seeding today. Those third and fourth seeds from each group are going to be playing against each other. The winners of those series will become our 5th and 6th playoff teams. The losers of that match will play the winners of these matches, which are the 5th facing off against the 6th seeds, in order to determine who our final two teams are. So the result of that is that this is an elimination match between the 5th seed from the Demacia group, University of Michigan, against the 6th seed of the Noxus group, Omega Gaming Wildcard. Winner of the series tonight will face off for a play-in slot next week, or a playoff slot next week. Loser of this will be ending their AVL run here tonight. Definitely going to be exciting, definitely ready to get onto the Rift. We're going to throw it to a quick break here while we get loaded on. Don't go anywhere, we're going to be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast for the Aegis Vanguard League, where we are taking to the Rift for Game 1 of Omega Gaming Wildcard up against Umish JV. Going to be this kind of interesting top lane focused draft from Omega Gaming Wildcard. We were talking about how they banned out a lot of top laners. They locked in the first pick, Jace. They really wanted to get themselves a solid matchup for Axum up against Cthulhu here. He is going to be on that Ornn, so still found himself a safe top lane tank to play up against the Jaces. YYC might be getting engaged on here. That's going to be the snare coming on through there from the beat drop, and that's going to be enough to guarantee the first blood for Jam Jim. Great play there to start off by Umish JV. They catch YYC sleeping a little bit there, a little bit too far up, and he's going to lose his life for it.
Ooh, yeah, the solid start that University of Michigan wants here coming through. That gold income for the mid lane will just translate nicely over into a Darksteel to start things off, into the Vagar, and only one Summoner Spell burnt for that. That's honestly a pretty good deal right now. Now, at the same time, we didn't see YYC ADC drop any of their own spells. They kind of just saw what was coming and accepted their fate here, which means that this bot lane won't be super imbalanced. But something else I want to note is the fact that you have 3 teleports picked up on the side of University of Michigan, including on Maximus there on the Seraphine. While this may lead to a lot of really solid rotations later on, and it also will kind of shore up a few bad trades in lane, this might be something that you would want to exploit on the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard when it comes to figuring out who you want to gank, who won't have summoner spells to really survive and push through the lane, at least in terms of utility that is provided in combat.
Yeah, definitely here. Now, I'm going to be keeping an eye on how this mid lane matchup might swing. That's going to be an early Darksteel for Jam Jim, facing off against Nightingale, who's already going to be on the back foot on this Vagar matchup. So, really want to see how he's going to be able to navigate this. He's already been a little bit outpaced in terms of getting level 2, and now he's trying to trade aggressively here, and is doing a good job of dodging out on the Dark Spheres. So, coming out pretty well in that given trade. If he can keep doing that, then this lead won't matter quite as much, but it's going to be a hard performance to keep up.
A dredge line going to only land onto a minion, so I suck will not get the engage that they're looking for here, level 2. But mid lane, I am really happy, Gordo, with what we just saw out of Nightingale there on the Vagar. As you were talking about, those aggressive early trades kind of help to feel out the matchup a little bit more, see where Jam Jim is standing, and we see Flash being used as Trundle walks over to gank that lane. Meanwhile, top side of the map, this is what Axum wants, this big wave beginning to push forward into the tower here. He wants to get this shoved in and knows that his Trundle is topside, so he's pretty safe playing this far up right now.
Yeah, absolutely is, and that's what you want to get happening in this top lane matchup. He's up about 5 CS with a big wave crashing, so not exactly the lead that he's hoping for quite yet, but he's got plenty of time to try to build that one. He's looking to deny as much gold and CS as possible, looking to harass Cthulhu Reborn out of this lane, and looking to develop himself a solid little lead in the one-on-one from that. Maybe even set up for plays later on, as that's going to be Duan getting hooked right into the baby cage, going to be forced to flash away there. As Nightingale comes down for the successful collapse, as Jam Jim's on the recall, forces the flash out of the Umish jungler. Going to be a nice little win there on the board for Omega Gaming Wildcard.
Yeah, Mega Gaming Wildcard basically picking up a flash for free. Duan's going to have a little bit of a more difficult time engaging into any of these lanes, especially as we see flash up on everyone coming through for Omega Gaming, but a big hook coming down.
Another great dredge line there from iSuck, but this is a double enchanter. They do have plenty of shields. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough quite yet, though. That's how it's going to flash away. Maximos does have the TP and not the heal, so not going to be able to give a little bit more support there. And there's going to be another dredge line. iSuck just not letting up.
Damage, though.
He's taking a little bit more than he might have bargained for. YYC, though, stepping up, fires off the volley, picks himself up a kill in the 2 versus 2. Actually ends up being registered as a solo kill. iSuck left a little bit in the dust there as he didn't get to touch a tout for the last while, but they're certainly going to take that gold advantage for the side of Omega.
Yeah, and I can only help but thinking what would happen if we had a heal on Maximus in this game. I think that could have easily turned that fight around and at least allow for them to get a last little bit of damage and flash forward into baby cage.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the stun coming in off of the pillar, but he might not even need it. Javi chasing him down, but Scatter the Weak going to create a little bit of distance there, and Nightingale doesn't quite have the damage yet, still scaling up on the Vanguard Jam Jim, going to be able to survive there, doesn't have to expend anything, had the flash on cooldown, so that's going to be a Summoner Spell advantage, actually, for you, Mish, as Nightingale had the flash advantage previously, but expended it there to try to make that play happen. Javi, though, just couldn't pillar him into the stun walls.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the choice to go for the flash there. It would be so fantastic for a Vanguard to pick up an early kill into this lane. So I really do like that forward thinking, but at the end of the day, now that you are down a flash, you will be forced to play this lane a little bit more safely going forward. You do have that cleanse up for any of Syndra's stuns, but at the same time, you are playing into a champion that just kind of rolls you early on.
Yeah, it's win or die mode right now for both of these squads, so like to see some proactiveness coming out of Nightingale. Like to see some proactiveness out of both squads, as they've both really tried to make plays happen so far in this game, and that's really what you're hoping to see if these teams want to get themselves into one of those deeper runs off of what was originally kind of barely scraping by into these playoffs. Cthulhu going to use that Searing Charge to get himself a little bit of distance away from Axa, but actually this is going to be the all-in. Flashes away there from that Call of the Forge God, and now here's Javi trying to turn the play around, going to be met with a flash in turn from Cthulhu. Cthulhu now down flash, down teleport, tanking shock blasts, but Duan sees the opportunity to start the dragon in the bottom lane. He's going to try to pick that one up for you, Mish.
Yeah, and I really thought that Cthulhu Reborn may have saw I Am Javi earlier when he was hovering the lane, but I guess that Call of the Forge God proved that he did not, and in turn that will be Summoner Spells burnt top lane on both sides here. Call of the Forge God used. I like the engage potential. I like the fact that when you looked at that in isolated 1v1, Cthulhu Reborn is able to claw back quite a bit and actually stay at parity regarding CS with the Jace. So maybe this lane's going to be a little bit more stable than we first thought, Gordo.
Yeah, for sure here. Definitely been pretty stable thus far. And, you know, the least stable lane has actually been the mid lane. It's been where Jam Jim has built himself up an 11 CS lead over this Veigar. You know, I'll chalk that up to some degree to being that he got the first blood. You know, he's had the gold advantage from the very beginning. He had the item advantage from level 1, and he's really been doing his best to bully Nightingale with that. Nightingale has kept up as best he can and has gone for these early Merc treads to try to survive against that Syndra damage a little bit more effectively. But the end result is going to be, you know, about a 2-wave lead for Jam Jim here.
Yeah, and now when I'm seeing these lanes and how they're beginning to equalize and play out, a little bit of sun coming out, we'll see what Nightingale can do. He's going to drop the cage in turn. I think that's the end of that trade. But we do have Viego in that area. But as I was saying, sorry about that, Gordo. As I was saying, one of the things I've been wondering is Maximus's choice to go for the Seraphine and pivot that into the ADC role. Perhaps it's in turn a pivot that occurred due to the fact that YWC ADC went for that Ashe, and in turn they realized that they won't have exactly the most threatening ADC to fight against, especially early on, and that's why they decided to go for this double enchanter route. But also at the same time, the fact that Seraphine is still able to keep up and is actually going, it looks like, for an AP route may still mean that a lot of damage will be retained by University of Michigan. It just might be more in the form of magic damage, with Duan having to shoulder quite the burden here, sitting on the Viego as the main source of AD.
Yeah, it's going to be an AP Seraphine here who will do a little bit more damage, but, you know, the end result is still, she's never going to match up to something that, you know, is a pure mage, like a Veigar, you know, like any of the control mages that we see in and around the meta. But I'm speaking of the wrong thing right now, as Axum is getting engaged on the top lane, going to get hit up by that Call to Forge God. He's going to trade 1-for-1 with Duan here. The 4-man dive in the top lane, only resulting in a 1-for-1. Definitely not the result that Yumish was hoping for. Javi staying safe under the turret here, and that is going to be the engage in the bottom lane. They land the Enchanted Crystal Arrow there onto Maximos, get the chain CC on through from I Suck, and that's going to be a kill picked up in the bottom lane. It's a 2-for-1 across the map off the play Yumish started. Omega Wildcard finishes it.
Definitely a little bit of a nightmare scenario for University of Michigan. The fact that you showed so many people topside means that that is one juicy defenseless Seraphine to fight against here, and that immediately leads to YWC ADC unleashing their ultimate and grabbing a kill over for, well, not for themselves. It looks like it's actually going to go over to I Suck, but nevertheless, we'll say that's just making up for the fact that they didn't get an assist on one of those earlier plays.
Yeah, you can't control the Ignite ticks. It was a good idea to throw the Ignite down, you know, get that additional damage where you need it. If it ended up mattering, definitely would rather have Ignited than not. does end up giving that kill over to I Suck, but, what happens, happens. They're still going to be very happy. That's all gravy, when you get the turret plates off of it. They've already sent so many resources up to the top lane. You're denying gold for Maximos. There's a lot of layers to how that play ends up netting in an advantage, not last hitting the kill. Doesn't have to be too big of a worry there. Axum now is set behind in CS as a result of that play, though. He does get taken out under his turret. He does lose out on a big wave that ends up having to get farmed up by Javi. So he's not thriving in the one-on-one the way that he was certainly hoping he was going to be able to. But all the resources being dumped towards top lane to deal with him are netting towards advantages in the bottom lane for the side of Omega.
Yeah, and with that, it looks like basically every lane in position is really kind of taking the advantage on the side of University of Michigan when it comes to CS. Obviously, this difference is bigger in some lanes than others. Bot lane, it's not really consequential whatsoever. Although, speaking of bot lane, quite the engage going through here as we see Syndra run forward.
Yeah, I suck gonna...
I think we may have lost Gordo. Yeah, in the meantime, while we get our play-by-play back, we are getting a bit of an engage on the top side of the map. Duan going to run forward. That's a flash force out of Axum as he goes into his hammer stance, but that will not be enough damage to trade a kill back for the time being. That will be one picked up for University of Michigan, evening out the kill score here. Welcome back, Gordo.
Axum taken down once again there, and yeah, I guess I get taken down apparently once a stream. Just, we lose my audio, I'm back. Usually this only happens once a night, so I think we're going to be just fine from here on out. Axum, though, not feeling quite as good. Did fall on down there. Is going to be respawning in a couple of seconds, but now 0 and 2 on the Jace, but that does net a dragon over to the side of Omega. They are now going to tie up the dragon game at 1-1, and this bot lane continues to eke out a lead. Nightingale keeping himself pretty even as well as he continues to scale up on the Vanguard.
Yeah, although I will say this Viego is becoming a little bit of a threat. That is Divine Sunder completed, and they are up quite a bit of CS against I Am Javi. Now, of course, Viego is a champion that benefits from the gold income to a greater extent than Trundle does. Trundle will always be a kind of disruptive force, will always be able to sap away some tankiness from the likes of Ornn and whatnot. But Duan gonna collapse again, one more time onto the Axum.
Yeah, Axum going to survive this time, though, and now goes in for the slow up against Cthulhu Reborn to the skies, going to get him far enough back to land the pillar. They are going to flash after Cthulhu here. They really want to finish off this kill after committing the Subjugate. They are not going to be able to get it, though, but I Suck going to find Duan here as Duan face checks right into him. That's going to be the depth charge thrown on down, and I don't think Duan can escape from this one. Axum puts himself on the board, slams him down with the two of the skies, and is now going to pick himself up some turret plates.
Hello! Face checking that bush. That was a great rotation from Suck to help secure a kill out of a play that almost looked like it didn't have any legs left, frankly. Cthulhu Reborn had managed to escape back towards tower, but Duan wanted to kind of re-enter into their jungle, or at least get a little bit more positional advantage there on the top side, and that led to them falling here, although Atout and Maximus are getting this wave pushed in, and we will begin to see priority get continually established across the map. There's a big push and pull from both sides. Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to force the flash out of Maximus here.
Yeah, he'll take that trade all day, every day. Not going to have the flash up for quite a while there, and YYC going to have Enchanted Crystal Arrow up much, much sooner than that. Definitely going to be happy with that in the bot lane. And meanwhile, in the top lane, they're crashing down Rift Herald, getting more plates into Axum's pocket. 10 seconds to go until those turret plates fall, but they will get it as Nightingale, at risk of getting solo killed here, cleanses away from the scat of the week, survives with less than 100 HP. But now he's going to have to take a recall here. He's got to call over Javi to catch this wave for him, as Jam Jim is just going to flash into him and almost finish him off with one more Dark Sphere. Will get it up the scat of the week. Jam Jim going aggressive there. Nightingale greeding out to try to get some of that XP, but Jam Jim might end up losing his life there. I Suck going to claim that kill for himself, takes a big swing with the anchor, and is going to turn it into a one-on-one. That is going to be that whole wave crashing into the turret there. Nightingale ends up denied it at the end of the day.
Loving Suck's rotations this game. He's really putting Omega Gaming Wildcard's plays onto the map here. He's allowing for plays to equalize really solidly, as we saw right there. It becomes a 1-for-1 rather than a pretty big disaster for Nightingale. And in turn, this Nautilus is just kind of really showing out the fact that you don't have that overwhelming kill pressure from a Seraphine and Karma lane means that you're freed up very slightly in the ability to just kind of go around the map and make plays where you so choose. Although he is now returning to the welcoming arms of YYC ADC on the Ashe.
Yeah, for sure. And YYC just farming it up in this bottom lane has now built himself up a little bit of a lead. Going to finish off the shield bow as well here. So scaling up well on the AD carry and, facing off against a team composition that hasn't gone for that traditional DPS marksman setup. Once you start to get a couple of items in there, you start to feel really favored in some of these siege and team fight scenarios. Having access to, that traditional marksman really opens up a lot of windows for you when you know that your opponents are kind of more cooldown gated like that by going for a mage in the bottom lane.
We see Duan come up here topside yet again, maybe looking for a little bit of a lane gank, but after seeing the state of the waves, he's just going to bide his time here in the alcove before finally backing. I think this is a pretty decent call. You want to get your items bought here and set up for this dragon that is spawning in about a minute. It will be a Hextech Drake coming down as number 3, and it will in fact mirror the fact that we have Hextech Soul coming through.
Yeah, 45 seconds to go on that spawn. Javi is already in the area. Maximo's going to channel that TP to rejoin his teammates in the bottom lane as they're trying to make a play on a YYC. Don't think they realize Javi's here, though. That's going to be a big turnaround and killing spree for I Suck. Claims all kills in the support position as that's going to be Enchanted Crystal Arrow landing onto Maximos. A great sidestep there from YYC onto the Encore, going to net a double kill into that bottom lane for Omega Gaming Wildcard. And right before the dragon spawns as well, should be an easy objective for them to claim for themselves.
I suck. Going up to 3-0 here will definitely be accelerating their builds towards a big tanky engager for Omega Gaming Wildcard. I don't know if it was because of the stun, but I really would have liked to see Maximus drop that Encore a little bit earlier here as a defensive peel option. Out of what we saw, the champions were basically already right on top of the Seraphine right there when we saw the ultimate come out, and that kind of translated itself over into that ultimate just not doing a whole lot as YYC ADC is going to pick up a ton of gold from that turret falling.
Yeah, will get himself some of that first turret gold there and is also going to get himself the dragon. First Hextech Drake of the game going on over to the side of Omega Wildcard. Axum holding it down in the top lane just fine. Still going to be a big CS lead for Jam, but not been able to convert it in these mid-game fights. Got denied the opportunity to do so. His bot lane got caught out there in the bottom side. And now going to be returning to the farming game. Missed out on what could have been a big swingy team fight for a Syndra. This is where she's really at her strongest, when she can just one-shot somebody right at the start. And, now they're going to have to wait for another chance to be able to do so. Everybody not going to be grouping up and fighting over a neutral objective here for quite a while. The Baron not spawning for 2 more minutes.
Well, they might be fighting over that Gromp, and I guess in a way that is a neutral objective as we see Cthulhu Reborn and Duan kind of get chased out, but the cage comes down.
Yeah, and it's going to be a flash dredge line missed there from the side of I Suck, and now here comes the re-engage. They go in with that Call to Forge God flash away from YYC to avoid the Encore. Big knock up there from that depth charge, going to stop Duan's advance and going to protect YYC, who is managing to stay alive now. He's got the Locket Shield, he's got the health regen. The ultimate is going to get thrown down on Nightingale. That's where the Unleashed Power goes, and that means nobody's going to end up going on down here. Jam not able to claim a single kill. YYC keeping himself safe with both summoner spells as well as all the resources at I Suck's disposal. 2 kills for 0 going over for Omega. Nightingale taking a lot of damage here, but Axum finds his opportunity to dive on in. Depth charge not going to end up landing, but Javi is here chasing him down, slowing him up with the pillars and the chomps. Jam goes down to Axum. Nightingale getting taken lower and lower, will be able to eventually fall on down, but Javi going to pick up that kill in return. It's 4 kills for 1 for Omega Gaming Wildcard as they start off the fight in the top river.
What was University of Michigan pushing mid for? We saw this huge group of Omega Gaming Wildcard crashing down through the river into mid lane, and we just saw how overextended this cluster of champions from the side of University of Michigan was, and that spells a huge amount of kills and gold flowing over to Omega Gaming Wildcard, who were turning what looked to be a small lead into quite a much more substantial one.
Yeah, and now they're just taking everything on this top side. They send YYC up into the top lane during that play to take the top outer turret. They're getting jungle camps funneled into him. Now just moving back over to the mid lane to continue to suck up that farm wherever it's available. Huge play there by YYC, managing to stay alive the whole way through. Tons of props have to go over to I Suck for managing to hold down the line. Gets a huge depth charge there onto Duan to stop the Viego from being able to execute down that kill. And from there on out, they just get to play the fight out exactly how they want to. At that point, Umish is just overextended, and they can just clean it up easily.
And we do see a little bit of a push coming back in favor of University of Michigan mid. They really want to take down this tier 1, and in turn we get a lot of clustering of champions, but that is a dredge line.
Yeah, into the Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well. It is going to be the Call of the Forge God coming back onto Suck. They use every ultimate on the Nautilus to pick up this shutdown. Goes over to Cthulhu Reborn, and it will be Suck. The most kills on the team taken off the map for a little while here. They're going to be able to pick up the mid-inner turret while they're at it, or outer turret, rather. Huge play there for Umish, keeping themselves in the game, getting themselves some additional gold.
And we do begin to see that these teleports, especially from the bot and mid, as it looks like Cthulhu Reborn has swapped over to heal, will come in handy, especially now that we are in that phase of the game where they are unleashed and you're able to hop to whatever so little bit of the map you desire. That will just mean that you get a little bit more setup and priority, especially as we are about a minute before the next drag comes up. This is a fight that if I was on Umish, I would really want to take. I don't want to put the game on such a timer where I have to confront the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard in another minute here while they grab a 4th Drake. So in turn, we see Cthulhu Reborn begin to push out this bot side of the map, just get some movement going through down here, and hopefully that will translate into a bit more vision control over bot side river.
Yeah, and they really want to get that vision control too. Looks like they're going to end up losing the fight here for it as Omega Wildcard moving on in here, and they're going to lose the real fight too. CR Tout getting locked on down is going to manage to escape with a little bit of help, the Mantra Shield there. But, losing control of this river is so rough for Umish as there's so much zone control available here. They have the Event Horizon, they have the Frozen Pillar. Very, very tough to enter these locations once you get forced on out. They're going to start dumping some damage into Cthulhu Reborn. He is pretty tanky. There's going to be the Encore thrown down onto Hobby, but he's already thrown on out. That Subjugate is taking so many defensive stats from Cthulhu Reborn and can just tank through it all day long. Dredge Line comes on through to lock on down onto the Seraphine. They're going to be able to pick up a Tout as well with the help of YYC's damage. 3 kills going on down to Omega for just the trade of Nightingale, and this is going to be the sole point to Drake coming on through at 22 minutes.
Really unfortunate rotations for the side of University of Michigan. Perhaps I started talking about priority over vision a little bit too late right there, Gordo, because by the time we brought it up, we already had Omega Gaming Wildcard storming the beaches, as it were, grabbing all the vision that they needed and setting up for an unfortunate face check by Cthulhu Reborn.
Yeah, definitely. And, you think you're the Ornn, you think you're so big and strong and can handle the damage for forever, and he did handle it for a little while, but eventually that Subjugate comes on through and both reduces your ability to frontline a tank. It means you have to head back away, just like any other squishy in the game, but it also makes Javi so incredibly tanky here. He stole so many stats and just survived all the damage coming on in. Javi isn't even the one who ends up going on down. It is Nightingale who just takes a couple of pot shots there, presumably from Zam Jim, but Javi really unstoppable now once he does get all those additional tank stats on his back. And as we told out earlier on, he goes right for the force of nature here, knows that if he itemizes up against magic damage, he's basically unkillable, and that really shows through in that last fight.
Yeah, and while at the end of the day, this was yet another victory picked up in these battles for Omega Gaming Wildcard, when you look at the gold difference of about 3,500 right now, it's not necessarily the end of the world. It is still something that we can see University of Michigan come back from, and I think that honestly, if they set up for neutral objectives a little bit earlier, or they get a good engage going, they can actually really turn one of these around, and in turn, maybe grab a Baron, as that has finally spawned onto the map.
Yeah, definitely. They are looking to dump some resources into Duan here to hope for Reset City, but he's going to get caught on out. I suck, going to land that depth charge, and now here's the collapse coming on through. Nightingale going to be able to finish off that kill. Axum in a 1v1 up against Maximos, just gets demolished there. Big shutdown going on over to Maximos, but a Tout has fallen down as well. It is going to be a 2-for-1 in that top jungle, and they're going to decide that's enough. Duan off the map. Baron in the sights of Omega Gaming Wildcard.
I really got to stop talking about vision control right as people go for neutral objectives. That was once again a little bit too late, as they're going to have to walk into this one blind.
Great angle on a Maximus there from iSuck, channeling the Hex Blast, landing the depth charge as well. This man is doing everything in these fights as he locks down onto the mid laner once again, takes him off the fight, and now Cthulhu Reborn gonna get slowly whittled away on. Javi doesn't have the subjugate this time, but doesn't need it, as that's a big double kill going over to Nightingale.
They stop the Baron, but give so much gold over to a lot of these carry champions. It is still Nautilus with 4 kills, but finally 5 over on Axum, and more notably, the Veigar's beginning to pick up steam here. Rabadon's death cap will be built, and this means that anyone caught in an event horizon or hit by a depth charge is most likely just going to be chain CC'd and murdered here.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it ends up working on out. The chain CC is so good, and it's always starting with iSuck. He is making huge plays here on this Nautilus, 4, 1, and 8. He's claimed quite a few of those kills for himself, but he's deserves it, and he's earned it throughout the course of this game, constantly landing the depth charge, constantly finding the angles, constantly getting the dredge lines. Now Duan getting chased off once again by Axum here. One more empowered Shock Blast will do it, but iSuck turning around here just to go in and hook him once again. Oh my goodness, the damage is disgusting. Maximus goes on down. There's the Shock Blast from Axum, finally finishing off onto Duan, and just like that, it's a 5v3 on the map.
Yeah, and at this point, the game is really not quite as recoverable as I just talked about, but 2 or 3 minutes ago. All of a sudden, you have one bad team fight lead to massive amounts of priority that just allows for Omega Gaming Wildcard to snowball, not only through the sheer strength of their champions, but just by virtue of the fact that they have so much priority over these lanes. Whenever Duan steps a little bit out of line, he's almost immediately punished, and that has a cascading effect across the rest of the map. Oh, wow, and that damage really beginning to come through. A Tout having to run back towards this inhibitor turret and maybe all the way back to the Nexus.
Yeah, reset now coming on through for Omega Wildcard, and so many of these resources are getting dumped into Duan as well. They're really relying on him to try to get the resets and try to find a way to carry through these fights, both because, you know, playing a traditional front to back isn't really in the cards anymore due to how far behind they are. But also just because, you know, they need that source of AD damage. They know that the itemization has come on through against these mages. The Ornn upgrades going on towards Duan first and foremost. He does have that Deicide in the inventory at 1, 5, and 2. But so far has not been able to make use of it. That's going to be another hook coming on in, another event horizon stun, another kill onto a Tout. Now moving forward front to back all the way through the entire team of UMISH JV is Omega Gaming Wildcard with a beautiful fight going 4 for 1 there, and now going to look to maybe even make it all 5. Ace comes on through, picked up by Axum, and this might just call it for game number 1.
Omega Gaming Wildcard came into this gauntlet with the worst win-to-loss ratio in the league right here, sitting at, I believe, 8 and 11. And in turn, they're trying to prove their worth in this tournament style, and it looks like they're really doing it here. Incredibly solid control over the map in game 1. Great micro, great macro, and a stunning victory to start out this series.
Yeah, huge win for them there. They end up playing out that game pretty much how you would have drawn it up. You know, they would have liked to have slammed top lane a little bit harder. They would have liked to not give over the first blood to the Syndra, but they played great around the cards that they were dealt. They were able to win through this bottom lane really effectively. A huge game from iSuck there, really doing the opposite of his name in this game, really coming on through as, in my opinion, a clear MVP for game number 1. And, you know, just continues to find the right fights, continues to get wins on the board for the squad, gets YYC ahead. He had that excellent fight in the top lane where he just managed to survive despite every single ability being thrown his way. And from there on out, it's a very easy, clean win for Omega Wildcard.
Yeah, you had several chances on the side of University of Michigan to try to bring this one back. I don't think that this was an insurmountable gold lead, even about 24 minutes into the game there. But what this ultimately translated into was just a little bit of fear to really walk up and get early vision of objectives, and that forced them into scenarios where they were pushed to go in blind in order to contest things as they came up. And in turn, 2 bad fights there, one around Dragon, one around Baron, and that basically sealed the deal here. Hopefully we'll be getting a little bit of adaptation from University of Michigan. I know that they definitely want to continue to stay here in this gauntlet, and they have the ability to do so. As I was kind of saying before, this is not a team that was lacking a win condition, even if this bot lane double enchanter choice may have been a little bit shaky. You could go for big offensive engages with Call of the Forge God and Encore, but what we just saw come through was these abilities being used really defensively after someone like I suck already picked up a huge play and really began to start that downhill spiral.
Yeah, for sure, though. Definitely not working out the way that they would have drawn it up. We'll see what the adaptation ends up being for that game number 2. We're going to throw to a quick break here while we get into the draft. We'll see you all in just a few short moments as we see if University of Michigan JV can take us to a game 3 or if Omega Wildcard will stamp their ticket to the next stage of the gauntlet.
Everybody panic! Hold on! I'm about to say something really cool. 3, 41, 9, and lift off! No one dies screaming without me. I feel like I forgot to shoot something. You're starting to bore me. She's such a loser, always ready to cry. Da-da-da-da. Aw, come on. What's the worst that could happen?
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League, where Omega Gaming Wildcard just took a clean game 1 over University of Michigan JV. We're now running it back on the same sides here. Blue side for Omega, red side for UMich. We will see who ends up taking this game number 2. If UMich wins, we will go to game 3. If Wildcard wins, it will be UMich going home with no AVL title, and Omega Gaming Wildcard moving on to that next stage to try to fight for a spot in the playoffs. So far, already some little changes to the approach of the pick in ban. That Lee Sin going to be banned away by Omega as it slipped through the draft last time.
Yeah, given that Omega Gaming Wildcard went so darn hard on banning out top laners against Cthulhu Reborn, and that honestly didn't really translate into their win con, they just had domination throughout the rest of the map, I'm happy to see a little bit of adjustment. We still do get the Gragas ban, and the Ornn ban actually going to be what comes through this time, but that Lee Sin may be signaling a little bit of a different approach here as we do get them picking up a first pick Viego, stealing that away from Duon, who was on it last game.
Yeah, interesting to see that one, as it didn't end up working out for Yumish too effectively, but this is definitely a comfort pick for Javi. He plays the Xin Zhao most of all by a lot, has 8 games played on it in the regular season. That's going to get banned away by Yumish. Will take the Viego, which is his second with 4 games played. Yumish, they're going to steal away some tools from their opponents as well, though. They're going to take this Nautilus that was so influential for I Suck in game number 1, and they're going to pair it up with the Aphelios, one that they've played with Instant a lot, and that does, in fact, speak of the devil, Instant is back in the roster for this game number 2, so we'll be playing that Aphelios here.
Ooh, yeah, and University of Michigan already showing a lot of changes here in this second draft. For one, we got Instant here on the Aphelios, but 2, this is just locking in ADC plus support as your first 2 picks, rather than holding them off until the very end of the draft. We won't be seeing something like an Enchanter or Enchanter plus Enchanter bot side this time around. It will, in fact, be a little bit more standard, and speaking of standard, Omega Gaming Wildcard going over to Jinx Leona.
That's a League of Legends draft in 2022, baby. The junglers and the bot lanes locked on into the first rotation, saving those solo laners to the second round. This is what I've gotten to see throughout this entire year so far. This is what I've come to expect. That's not what I've come to expect, though. That is a Karthus locked in here for Yumish. That could be for Duon in the jungle. We've seen some Karthus bottom, but doesn't seem like that's in the cards anymore with the Aphelios locked in. Could also be a mid lane Karthus, you know, throwback to the old days, but really does feel like jungle's the way to go these times. I do think that is going to be, once again, building around Duon in that jungle. This time he's going to be playing that hard farming Karthus, and they're going to be working to defend him.
Yeah, Karthus, a little bit interesting to see here. It's not a champion that is super commonly grabbed, especially in coordinated team play environments, but at the same time, I don't really see why not. This is someone who could put out a ton of damage, and if you get really good deaths at the start of fights, you could see them kind of become unstoppable machines, just dropping ultimates, dropping well-placed Qs, and in turn, really turning the tide of battle here. We'll see how we get an adjustment from Omega Gaming Wildcard, given this kind of off-kilter pick coming through for University of Michigan. An Udyr ban going to be the first thing on the chopping block, so they may be reading this as a Karthus mid, in fact.
Yeah, they are, in fact, at least keeping that option on the table and sending out bans as appropriate here. Jam Jim has a pretty deep champion pool. He's willing to play all these different mages, so maybe they don't see too much value in trying to pinch those selections. So instead, they're going to take away this Udyr. They're going to take away the Jace as well, banning that one away from themselves as well as from Yumish, as they had been the ones to lock it in game number 1 here. This time, they don't want that blind pick to be available. See what Yumish wants to take here. They are going to hover top lane in the form of this Camille. Would give them counter pick in the mid. We'll see if that does get locked on in, and it does. See what Axum wants to take into that one.
Looks like Cthulhu Reborn will not be going on a tank this time around with that Ornn banned away alongside the Gragas. I really like this champion. I think that it's something that has honestly kind of been slept on, which is so bizarre to say given how dominant of a feature Camille has been in that top lane for so many seasons here. But honestly, right now, it's just not something I've been picking up a ton on, especially with the Hullbreaker meta in full swing even now. And it looks like we will, in fact, be getting something a little bit more 2022 here, as the Gnar will be grabbed in going into the hands of Axum.
Yeah, a very comfortable pick for Axum there. In theory, the Camille is supposed to be good into the Gnar, can really lock him down while he's in his mini form, and is one of those champions that can really take him out before he gets to Mega, as well as being able to play effectively up against that Boomerang, up against the range disadvantage, using the tactical sweeps and things like that. But nonetheless, is going to be a comfort pick and is definitely not a very harsh matchup one way or the other. Is the Twisted Fate going to be locked in here for Omega? Nightingale has played this once this season. They are going to bring it out once again, trying to get their Gnar started, trying to get their bot lane ahead, and trying to support this Viego that they now have in the jungle.
I like the Twisted Fate here. I think that even if it is something that we don't really see Nightingale play a whole lot, it's someone who rewards really solid fundamentals, really good farming, and in turn, really good map awareness. And I think that the rotation-heavy style that Omega Gaming Wildcard brought to the table in Game 1 will benefit really strongly from having that Destiny ultimate and just more generally having a mid laner that provides a lot of utility over to the team. Ahri going to be the last grab for University of Michigan, all but confirming the fact we will be seeing Duwan take that Karthus here.
Yeah, Jim really setting himself up to try to follow this Twisted Fate around the map here, try to make plays happen, try to keep him shoved on in. And that is effectively going to be serving as defense for the Karthus as well. If he can keep Twisted Fate under turret, he can roam over to defend against some of these plays that are going to be made up against this Karthus, then he can guarantee that Duwan's going to be able to just full clear all day long, get onto his items, get stronger for later, and eventually just be, this big, strong, farmed up, multi-item Karthus. Omega Gaming Wildcard going to be looking likely to try to make plays here, but they've got the Viego in the jungle. It's not like he is the biggest invader counter jungler in the game. And they also have this scaling bot lane with the Jinx Leona. Should do just fine up against Aphelios Nautilus. I mean, this is the most standard bot lane that we see these days. Does usually end up favoring the Jinx eventually, but in the early game, Aphelios has options that he can play around with. So, really curious to see how they'll be able to find angles to try to punish this Karthus, or if they even will do that, or if instead they'll just try to influence lanes, get ganks off, and feel confident that Karthus isn't going to quite be able to do that as effectively.
I think by the fact that we get a bit more standard of a draft this time around, barring the Karthus jungle, what we will be seeing is just what you're kind of talking about right here, Gordo, that there's a lot of flexibility in how these people can kind of exercise their game plan. They can implement a lot of different approaches, especially when we look at I Am Javi on this Viego. You have options to go for a variety of different lanes here, but none of them necessarily stand out as the heavy focus of the game. Obviously, Camille has escape options. Ahri also has escape options, and it's never great to jump into someone like a Nautilus. But at the same time, you have really good rotation. You have Twisted Fate, especially post level 6, storing up an ultimate to kind of help you with fights. And therefore, you have the big potential to really close out any of these lanes. And it really will come down to I Am Javi to kind of figure out where to spend their focus. Duwan, on the other hand, a little bit more linear of a game plan on the Karthus. You want to farm up, you want to get big, and you want to start not one-shotting people, but putting the fear of God into them with a potential for a one-shot to come through with that ultimate.
Yeah, you have a linear game plan in that you want to farm on up, but the wrinkle thrown in there is you also don't want to run into I Am Javi. If you run into I Am Javi in either jungle at any time, it's going to be really dangerous for you, as he's going to try to chase you down, he's going to try to pick up those kills, and especially in most of the stages of the game, he's going to be capable of doing that. He's going to outdamage you, he's going to outduel you, he's going to take you out. So you need to have allies ready to collapse there. If you do find him, you need to be aware of where he might be and where you're actually allowed to go walk around and farm, especially if some of these lanes start going south. If Cthulhu starts losing, if Jam starts losing, if bot lane starts losing, then you're going to need to be really, really disciplined with when you go into that side of the jungle and where. Otherwise, you could end up really giving the snowball over to Javi on this Viego, which is definitely going to spell disaster for you, Mish. Meanwhile, Omega, they know this as well. They're going to be looking to punish this Karthus wherever they can. They're going to know that he's going to be a little bit weaker in the early game. They're going to know that, he's eligible to have his jungle clear interrupted, to have his camps stolen away, to have his clear stopped in its tracks, and they're going to try their best to take advantage of that fact.
Yeah, this will definitely be a really interesting game to see, especially coming from the fact that University of Michigan are but a single round away from being eliminated here in the Aegis Vanguard League. A lot on the line, and they've put their trust into these champions here. Going to be really, really spectacular to watch as they will try to claw this one back and bring this to a Game 3.
Yeah, on the Death Singer here with their backs up against the wall, you Mish going to take us into a little bit of a break here while we get loaded onto the Rift. We are going to be right back to see as Yumish Karthus takes on Omega Gaming Wildcard as both these teams fight for their playoff lives. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Vanguard League. Playing Gauntlet, where in an elimination match, Omega Gaming Wildcard is up 1-0 over Yumish JV. Yumish going to this Karthus. He's got the first strike due on for this match. Gonna be looking to get himself a little bit of bonus gold off the back of these Requiems. Looking to really hard farm and accelerate his item build. See how this ends up working out for him, as it's the last hope here for the Yumish squad. If they end up losing this game, they are going to be done here in the AVL, Nyarko.
Yeah, putting a lot of hopes on what has kind of filtered into a pretty standard draft and set of runes at the end of the day, barring Duan on that Karthus, as we have talked about at length so far. But this really becomes anyone's game. We don't really see as big of gaps in terms of weaknesses or potential for games to be thrown away, as we kind of saw in game one with a much more non-standard approach to the round. But overall, things will just come down to individual execution and overall team coordination here. You really want to make sure that some of these lanes get a bit of priority on the side of University of Michigan, though, because you want that rotation ability just to continue to protect the puppy that is that Karthus here. And we shall see how that plays out, as they will begin with a pretty extensive leash down here on the bot side with Nautilus and Aphelios.
Yeah, and YYC and I Suck not leashing this game, so they are going to get some alone time with this wave before Instant and Atout actually get over there and start to set on up. We'll see if that ends up making a difference, as Nightingale really taking a lot of damage here from the Spirit Fire of Jam Jim, starting off with that REW, stepping up and getting some great trades up against the Twisted Fate as a result, proccing that Electrocute pretty easily, and going to force a very early Corrupting Pot usage out of Nightingale.
Yeah, I like this early W from Jam Jim. They have the confidence to be able to just farm with their auto attacks and dump all the damage possible onto Nightingale without the risk of having to try to throw skill shots out here. But coming into level 2 now, we're beginning to see 1 charge to 3 coming through here. Ari's going to be in a pretty solid spot going forward.
Yeah, definitely ending up with the de facto health advantage there as the lockdown comes in for Atout. He's going to take some damage there as the level 2 is hit first by YYC and I Suck. This is the reward for not leashing for your jungler. Javi just having to clear through on the back of his own 2 hands. Is doing just fine there, but he's going to be a little bit behind Duan's clears. You can see Duan's already through 4 camps, already through 5 camps, as Javi is starting up on that red buff.
And Duan going into first strike here, we might, because of that C ult usage, not necessarily being devoted entirely to securing kills, but in turn just proccing that rune and grabbing a lot of gold forward, especially early on in this match, where Duan, not necessarily going to be the strongest champion, is just trying to turbocharge their build up to about 2 to 3 items to really begin to pop off here.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially with how this draft is set up. You know, Nightingale is going to be threatening to make plays on this Twisted Fate if he gets the opportunity to roam away from Jam Jim. You know, you don't really have any hard winning lanes across the board here. Probably not going to be seeing the Camille demolishing the Gnar too hard, likewise with these other lanes. So using the farming ulti here, just going, hey, you know, I'm going to get an assist's worth of gold, even if I don't really get an assist. And now we can wait a couple of minutes until my ulti comes back up. Definitely going to be an option on the board for Duan. We'll see if they're actually willing to adopt that play style, or if they're still going to be keeping it on the table, you know, just in case a play happens somewhere and they can use it to secure a kill. As Atout going to get locked on down here off an early gank from Javi, is going to be able to stay alive though, and has the aftershock to make himself tanky enough. Will take some return damage there, but I Suck taking plenty as well. Instant does have this snare. He's going to be able to snare them soon, but I Suck flashes back on in, finishes off the kill onto Atout. Duan arriving in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Charm landed in the mid lane, is met with a stun card. They are just going to trade back and forth. Nightingale actually forced a flash there in that engagement, but the first blood coming through in the bot lane for Omega Wildcard as they stake their recalls.
And that's pretty unfortunate for the side of University of Michigan, who had vision of I Am Javi that entire darn time. I think that this turn that Atout was looking for right there could have gone in favor of University of Michigan if Duan rotated a little bit faster, but at the end of the day, that just turns into, that's just unfortunate right there, as now a second kill is going to be picked up bot side.
Yeah, you know, by the way, usually when I grumble and say I suck, it's because I'm in a bad mood, but Instant going down there, huge play by I Suck in the bottom lane. Great awareness, great use of the Hex Flash, great lockdown, great play. He's carrying it through from game number 1. This was such a big part of their plays in game 1, and now once again he's coming on through here, getting ahead in the bottom lane, using the Hex Flash to make plays, soon going to be unlocked to try to make plays happen across the map. Umish, they're going to have to find a way to do something about this, as I Suck is really starting to repeat this performance.
And look at these trades topside. Cthulhu Reborn taking a lot of poke and getting whittled down pretty darn hard here. We'll have to take that first back. They have Grasp of the Undying as their rune here, but the issue is that if Axum really gets priority over the lane and gets a lot of initial poke off with the utilization of that boomerang, it becomes a little bit difficult for Cthulhu Reborn to walk up and get the trades necessary to actually heal back up off of that item. They will return to lane with a smorgasbord though, here with that Sheen and a longsword and a refillable potion and a control ward, and they also have a biscuit just so you can get all the slots filled up.
Yeah, wow, really coming back with the grab bag of tools there. So that's going to be a hook landed for a tout, though. There's going to be a lot of damage coming through onto YYC. I suck, looking to frontline for him, looking to stop the Aphelios from advancing. Will keep YYC alive for now, as that's going to be the TF ult channel. Nightingale arriving in the bottom lane. Instinct going to be forced to cleanse to get away from that gold card. It's going to be a lot of damage coming through on I suck. He will fall on down, but a tout going to get traded on, and that's YYC getting excited. The turret there, standing defense for Instant, going to stop them from stepping forward, as there was a risk of Nightingale dying there. Is going to end up being a 1-for-1 in the bottom lane off the back of the first ultimate here, but here comes Duan in the bottom lane. Gets a big slow there, but flash away from YYC with the zap already channeled. Will be able to pick himself up that kill on an Instant, but now the dive from Jam Jim is good enough. Going to be a double kill, but he gets traded on by the turret. That amping damage is just a little bit too high. Nightingale finishes that one off, and it's a 3-for-3 all in all bottom lane.
Wow, action-packed for sure. Duan getting caught out here around the dragon, though.
Oh, great immune on the depth charge, or the dredge line, rather, there from Javi. Is going to be taking away that Karthus body, but is going to find himself right on top of the Dentify, but he steals away the Karthus passive. He's still doing tons of damage onto a tout there with the Skittles. A tout going to be able to avoid them enough, though, to be able to stay alive. Just going to munch up on that fruit. Prefers the fruit to the candy, and will be able to stay alive.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I really like to the extent to which both teams are continuing to try to make plays go on for a little bit past their lifetime. Usually that could lead to some big throws, but right now I think the fights are just really magnificent. Speaking of which,
I suck finding it again. Hex flashing over the wall, getting the play started, locking down Instant. Excitement for YYC. He turns that into a kill onto a tout. A nice ultimate from Duan is going to turn it into a 1-for-2. But once again, I suck getting play started in the bottom lane, putting YYC so ahead here. 4-1 on the Jinx. Perfectly set up to be able to carry this game.
I gotta apologize, Gordo. I really thought that this was, the high elo leagues where you don't see that many kills early. People just feel each other out and really look to capitalize on mistakes. But this is an 8-minute bloodbath so far right now. 8-5 in favor of Omega Gaming Wildcard here. But that gold really staying pretty darn even for the time being. Ooh, this might be an engaged topside as well. Leona rotating up.
Yeah, Axum is tired, cannot go Mega here. Cthulhu does have access to the ultimate as well as a level lead, but can't really feel comfortable stepping forward. Realizes that I suck is in the area, and so that he has to back away, and ends up taking way more damage there. That's always the risk against these ranged champions, is you step up too far, and they get to chase you down the whole way, using their superior auto range to weave in more and more damage. The Hyper Proc's giving him more movement speed to keep chasing. Cthulhu now left incredibly low, is going to complete the recall, but with no teleport here, it's probably going to end up losing these minions to either turret or to his own jungler.
And we see how much pressure Isuck is really exerting across the map as well, just by virtue of Jinx being up 4-1 right now. That just allows for them to kind of hold their own a little bit better, dump down damage onto a tout and Instant, and in turn, Isuck pressured mid, pressured top, and even without any of those plays being made, they definitely prevented and were on the minds of University of Michigan that whole time that they were gone.
Absolutely there. Axum, he has a lane opponent once again there. Took a little bit of abuse from the Karthus, but you can see he's built himself up a 20 CS lead as a result of these last couple of good plays there. That was a big wave that got eaten up by Duan. Luckily, the Karthus is one of those junglers where you'd like that to happen, is there's going to be a lockdown coming on through onto I Suck. He gets hit with all the CC, he gets hit with the charm, the heal coming on through to try to save his life. Not going to end up working out. YYC now going to be forced to retreat. Jam Jim out of Spirit Rush charges, not going to be able to get forward onto the AD carry. I Suck ends up going on down there, but this time around he doesn't have the shutdown gold. This time around it's sitting on YYC, and therefore is gonna not quite be as worth it as you might hope to just get the support. Still gonna be a good play in the bottom lane though, as it's gonna get returned on in the top lane. That's a nice block there on that hook shot from Axum. Will it be enough to enable an escape? Looks like it is. Cthulhu Reborn will be able to get himself out of there despite being shut down early, but I speak too soon as Nightingale has popped the Destiny. He's showing up in the top lane. There's going to be the Karthus ultimate, though. Going to get a couple of targets pretty low. Cthulhu at risk of going on down. Finally, Nightingale's going to be able to pick it up. Avoids the second turret shot. Successful 3-man dive at the top lane, although it was a little shaky there for a few minutes. Nice play for Omega, though. They get themselves more turret plates. They get themselves another kill.
I really like that conscientious damage distribution that we're seeing out of Omega Gaming Wildcard right there. Nightingale trading off those turret shots really magnificently and dancing around that burn damage coming through from Duon, but big claps on the bot side of the map. They want YYC ADC's bounty.
Yeah, they really do. They might just have to settle for I suck, but that is the charm. Threaded through, landing onto YYC, will net a double kill over to Instant. Huge gold influx into this Aphelios, the TP from Axum now. Too little, too late, and is in fact going to net even more over to Umish JV. Axum's got nowhere to go. He's going to get taken out by Duwa.
And we're all tied up at the 11-minute mark when it comes to kills at the very least. Axum, unfortunate utilization of that summoner spell here, heavily punished after that play went south from YYC ADC and I Suck. We saw really solid defensive maneuvering, but at the end of the day, Ari Charm was just too darn powerful, and YYC was pulled deep into the fray right there. And that will be shutdowns going over to a lot of the big carry members on the side of University of Michigan, definitely in this one.
Yeah, huge amount of gold for Instant in particular there, and that's really where they want to find it on their Aphelios. Has already completed up this Gale Force, and now is going to be recalling with even more money soon enough. Has ended up ahead of YYC in that department, as YYC took a stop off at the Berserker Greaves, and will mean that it's going to be a little while until he gets his Mythic completed, and is going to be at a combat disadvantage up against Instant in the meantime. Meanwhile, the main source of, or at least one of the biggest lane advantages that Omega have was in that top lane. It was with Axum, but he's given away a solid amount of that lead as well, as he spent the time to TP bot lane and try to salvage that play. Didn't end up working out.
We're about half a minute before Dragon number 2 pops onto the Rift, and in turn we see I Am Javi here bot side has that Rift Herald in their grasp, gonna drop it here and try to get some more gold over onto the Jinx. They really want to get her over to that first item here, and in turn just help dictate the pace of the map after. We might see confrontation here around Dragon number 2. Exhaust coming down onto Jam Jim though.
Yeah, Nightingale trying to get a good trade in there, trying to get the resets as well on his Spellbook procs. Remember, that's not the real exhaust, that is the Spellbook exhaust. That's going to be a big engage coming on through here from Javi, going to try to get the shutdown. Is going to be able to do it. Flash forward from Nightingale to finish off onto Jam Jim. 2 kills for 0 so far, but that's going to be the card. This ultimate dealing tons of damage, and that's going to be Camille actually managing to finish off the kill there onto YYC, and now with all these chakrams available, Instant turning the fight back around, gets 2 already, and Nightingale has nowhere left to go. He's going to have to try to execute here, but the collapse from Cthulhu, too strong. Big shutdown for that Camille. Huge play to get Cthulhu Reborn back in the game there. 2 big shutdowns in his pocket, a dragon in his team's pocket, and a big punish from Umish JV turns a good play for Omega into a better play for themselves.
And this is what I mean when I talked earlier about this tendency for both teams to really prolong fights past the point at which I would think that they would typically be over here. You see University of Michigan push the issue, and in turn Cthulhu Reborn's rotation over manages to net them a shutdown onto Nightingale, and it allows for their side to secure the dragon here. Gold now basically even after all that is said and done, but at the same time you really are in for quite the banger of a fight if anything begins from either side.
Yeah, Jam Jim going in for that attempted engage up against YYC. He's going to slide away with the Gale Force to be able to stay alive. Not going to end up netting anything for the side of Umish. And now knowing that Spirit Rush is down, they can go for a play here onto a Tau. Double stuns coming on through Lockdown. So strong. Is going to net that first reset. Dredge line almost landing onto Instant. I Suck trying to channel his performance on the Nautilus from game number 1. Or rather, Javi trying to channel I Suck's performance from game number 1. Doesn't end up netting it there, but they are going to get the kill, and they are going to get this mid lane turret as well.
Mid lane turret going down here is really going to free up their priority across these lanes now. You'll be getting a lot more rotation potential from the like of Isuck and Nightingale, 2 of the big players that we've seen so far. Sure, laning phase may have been over even before this, but now it's basically going to be a free-for-all of rotations and movements towards waves, just making sure everything is pushed out. And it looks like for the time being, Jam Jim is doing that pretty magnificently topside of the map. Nightingale going to have to receive this one under the turret. Meanwhile, Axum pushing really deep on the bot side.
Yeah, Nightingale on the answering Jam Gym duty until the Destiny comes back on up and he can try to make a play once again. Will be coming up in just a few seconds here. We'll see what he's able to do as he's tracking this Karthus and this Ahri as they try to enter the jungle, but is now going to find himself a little bit caught. Maybe didn't realize that both of them were there. Is going to be able to Destiny away, but he's just going to get hit with that Requiem. Dauan picks himself up a nice kill there up against Nightingale. Gets great value out of the second Requiem, and Nightingale forced to expend the ultimate for basically nothing.
A lot of the game plans are really beginning to come together for University of Michigan here. 3, 2, and 6 on that Karthus, well on their way towards item number 2, already with that Leandries and Sorcerer Boots in tow. Ahri, meanwhile, just going to work as a fantastic set of CC and engage skills here with that Everfrost constructed. And that isn't to even mention the fact that they themselves are doing quite a bit of damage right here, sitting at the highest CS in the game besides the Gnar, but Axum, for the time being, I think, with that Hullbreaker build, is just going to be side laning.
Yeah, nice lockdown coming through here onto Jam Gym, though. 3-man squad going to be able to pick up this gank, going to give that gold over to YYC, get him back involved. He's been sitting on 4 kills since he was massively ahead in the early game here, and since then has kind of just given up death after death. Now going to be getting right into the green here as YYC finishes off the kill onto Jam Gym. Now going to be on the Gale Force, going to be going, looks like for the PD second, maybe the Rapid Fire Cannon, and starting to scale up into this game, be a little bit more powerful.
It was an aesthetically beautiful collapse onto Jam Gym, I gotta say. It was like a perfect equilateral triangle as someone approached from the river, someone approached from the far side, and someone approached from the near side of the map. Really impressive to see as we see Hookshot come through, Cthulhu Reborn looking to take this fight against Axum.
Yeah, Axum getting a good trade in there, but you can see the scaling is starting to favor Camille. You know, even with the Hullbreaker on Axum, Cthulhu ends up on the favorable side of that trade, which is really going to be how this matchup continues to go, especially up against the mini Gnar. Or Camille just gets such good trades off and ends up feeling so strong there. Nonetheless, though, they're going to be able to secure the Rift Herald up on the top side. They're going to put that one into Javi. At 13-13, this game is still very, very close.
It's going to really come down to these next few objectives. We have a Mountain Drake coming up onto the map here. Both of them sitting at 1 apiece right now, so the stacking is not really in full effect. But this soul going to be really valuable for a lot of members of both sides. Of course, champions like Camille and Nautilus very much benefit from a little bit of extra tankiness, given that they're kind of hurling themselves bodily into fights. And on the other side, the story is very much the same for the likes of Viego and Gnar here. And in turn, we will be seeing Omega Gaming Wildcard getting some control over the vision here on the bot side of the river. This is a position that is pretty familiar to us from last game. We'll see if, given how things are a little bit more even here, if this fight might go differently, though.
Yeah, and Javi has the Rift Herald. I'll see if he wants to end up throwing it on down. He does spawn it in the mid lane there. Try to create a little bit of a decision point for Yumish, but Yumish has already started up the dragon. Destiny going to show everybody exactly where it is. Javi is waiting here. He is going to manage to steal it away, but now the team fight breaking on out. Tons of AoE damage coming across on both sides. Cthulhu trying to finish off on a target to instant. Gets himself the first kill of the fight and gets the second as well. Make that the third as they are turning this one around for the side of Yumish. They are dominating the team fight despite losing the dragon. Big turnaround from Axum, though. He managed to secure himself a triple kill, but will eventually go on down to the Requiem. No, stays alive for just a little bit longer and will eventually burn on down. It is an ace for the side of University of Michigan JV for only 3 kills on the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard.
3 kills into Dragon, to be fair, that definitely is still pretty favorable for University of Michigan, really showing their team fight prowess here. Gnar having to do a lot of heavy lifting that time around. I just don't think that the positioning was quite there for YYC ADC and I Suck. I kind of would have liked to see a little bit better placement of a Solar Flare. And also, I am Javi, not really able to get a whole lot of damage out right there. They were basically on Dragon Sealing duty, and in turn, they were taken down very quickly in that fight here. So there is the potential for a little bit more balance to come through if a fight is kind of taking on more neutral soil between these two teams. But at the same time, that is great gold funneled over. Duan's ultimates are really beginning to do the damage that we expected them to, even as he takes a little bit of a divergence away from full damage with that Zanya's Hourglass secondary. But overall, things are looking up for University of Michigan. They really don't want their run in the series to end here.
Definitely don't, and they're putting themselves in a good position to stay alive as a Tau going to land a huge dredge line there on a YYC, going to net another kill over to Instant. Nice suck, forced to head for the hills here as he watches the carry go down, but will he be able to stay alive? Looks like just barely, but no! Instant with the long-range chakram coming on through there from the Calibrum will be able to get himself a second kill in the fight, and just like that, they start the Baron immediately. They know that they are 5v3 on the map. They know that Axum is stuck in the bot lane split pushing, and so they are going to get themselves this big purple worm and trade for their bot lane turret.
Yeah, that's pretty rough for the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard. They will trade this for a pretty big push bot side, but ultimately Axum's not even able to crack open the base quite yet. These are inhibitors still standing strong alongside their turrets, and now we will have to see a lot of turtling and safe play come through for the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard. We see that a mistake nets the Baron in this case, but further mistakes may cost them their entire base, frankly, especially as we get this empowered stampede down mid lane.
Yeah, absolutely here. The Baron buff, a huge deal, but that's going to be the lockdown on to Instant, the key target.
Ooh.
Caught out by I Suck. The teleport going to be punished off the back of the channel as well. Cthulhu tried to escape, but is getting chased down now by Axel. That's going to be a shutdown for Javi. And now the tables are turned, Nyarko. It's a 5 versus 3 for Omega's side, and they're going to turn it into even more. They lock down on a Jam with a great solar flare. I Suck putting the game on his back, turning around the entire pace of the game as they take out every single member of Yumish. Duwan is left here in the stasis. He's gonna get taken down for the full 5-for-0 ace. Javi got nowhere left to go, though. He will end up going on down. Forget that 0. It's a 5-for-1, but still a huge win that Omega Gaming Wildcard will take any time.
Yeah, they're going to get so much off of this as well. This is at least this mid inhibitor gone. I don't know if they're going to continue to push it. We'll see.
Oh,
we'll see
huge
what happens.
blue gun.
Yeah. Wow, that Moonlight Vigil coming out big right here. That will deter the rest of the push. But as I was saying, neutral soil, really kind of the place where you'll be able to see Omega Gaming Wildcard shine. They brought this one back even after that Baron buff came through. And with none of those left on the map, we return to this base state in which now they're going to look to gun for a third dragon and hope to push this game a little bit later.
The Infernum ulti there from Instant, nearly netting 2, does end up netting 1. This Aphelios is still very big and very scary. That's why it was such a massive deal for I Suck to manage to get that lockdown and secure himself that kill. Next on the menu is going to be this dragon in 40 seconds, and they are going to take down the mid-outer turret off the back of their numbers advantage here. How can Omega Gaming Wildcard get themselves onto this side of the map to try to start taking a little control back? It is going to start off with this pick onto a tout, but he's just a little bit too tanky, and the turn back onto Javi is so strong. The shutdown comes through instantly, and nobody is doing anything to get some damage onto the side of Yumish. Jam dashing forward, gets the charm onto YYC. I Suck is down as well. 3 kills for 0 as these teams are just giving haymakers back and forth. Neither one willing to cede any ground, and this time it comes up for Yumish. They get 3 kills for none and are going to turn it into at least a dragon.
Jam my jimmies. That is a powerful Ari right there. Going for that Horizon Focus second means that any damage following that charm just becomes so darn powerful, and that really came through paying dividends right there. Why we see ADC getting hit by that floating pink heart and in turn being wiped out. This will translate over into a dragon for University of Michigan, and that will send everything even right now. Duwan is also just going to continue to become a bigger and bigger scaling threat. We see that Shadow Flame as item number 3 come through. He's truly power spiking now.
Yeah, so strong here on this Karthus. Definitely going to be very threatening with the Requiems coming down. Not really a lot of tools to avoid that damage coming on through yet. Moav Malmortius picked up for Axum is going to help against some of this magic damage, but other than that, very little MR outside of the boots department to be seen across this team. And, it's going to be the full force of a Requiem smacking you in the face. Is going to chunk, especially these squishies, for, a quarter, a third of their health, and really going to mean that they have to play off of a lower, really, health total than they would normally.
Yeah, Mercury Trust coming out for 2 of the members of the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard, and that will do a lot into the likes of Nautilus, Jam on that Ari, as well as Duwan. But it might not be enough. They really need to get damage as well, just to be able to tear through some of the bigger members of the enemy team. Cthulhu Reborn now on that Ravenous Hydra, just going to be such a difficult champion to take down, and not to mention that a Tout is really kind of coasting off of those early kills that they picked up to continue to just go full supportive, get a bunch of wards across the map, as well as pick up that Locket of the Iron Solari. Now, with that Kindle Gen, they're going to continue to build deeper into that health pool.
For sure, here is the setup for the next dragon, as a little ways away. The Baron, though, is spawning in about a minute here. So far, went over to the side of Omega earlier on, but now going to be a little bit tougher for them to contest here. They've got to face off against this very well-scaled Karthus, this very well-scaled Aphelios. It was a great pick earlier from I Suck to really turn the fight in their favor, but they really need plays like that to end up coming ahead in these fights. They need to pick somebody, they need to get resets for their Viego, and they need to take one of these major damage dealers off the board, as, you know, the age is starting to show on this Twisted Fate a little bit. He's not the major carry force that something like this Ahri, something like this Karthus, something like this Aphelios can be. They're kind of limited to the Viego and the Jinx in that department, and not being able to get resets on the Viego, that limits them to just the Jinx, so very difficult to play out.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty constricted game plan coming through for the blue team here. Omega Game Wildcard going to have to play this immaculately. I suck. Really going to have to work as a great engager in front line as a dredge line lands, and this will be the start of a fight.
Huge lockdown there onto YYC, but he manages to create enough distance there to start pumping out the damage, and now it might be Cthulhu Reborn, who just looked a little too far up, but he flashes in, finishes it off there with the precision protocol. Huge play, but will they be able to turn it on around? I Suck diving over the wall to finish off onto a Tout. They are going to be able to get him, and that's going to be the first reset for Javi. Duan goes into the stasis to try to stay alive. He's going to prompt a flash on out. His instinct is in the red and white guns. He does so much damage here. Look at all those chakrams. He would just one-shot somebody if he's able to get onto him. Just isn't able to get the auto on through, though. Instant retreats back to set up for the Baron with the rest of his team. It's a 2 for 2, but with the winning side being Mish, they are going to move themselves over onto this Baron.
Duan on that Karthus really beginning to dictate the pace of this game as well. Whenever that ultimate gets channeled and dropped on the enemy team, you essentially have to look at a massively reduced health bar. This will be a contest, though.
Yeah, they are looking to potentially make something happen here. Nightingale, going so low, though. Axum stepping forward, getting the boomerang. Cthulhu is here, but Javi is here to start getting himself some resets. Now he finds himself face-to-face with that big, strong Camille, though, going to have to back away. Ends up being a 1-for-1, but it also stops the Baron, so they'll take that all day, every day. And with the jungler off the map, can Omega potentially think about doing the Baron themselves?
Yeah, that could definitely be what's going on here. We do see Camille pushing deep there into the mid lane, and they have rotate potential, but with everyone backing, I think that Omega Gaming Wildcard are going to use this opportunity to grab a buff, this time going over to their side. We do see F out in the area, Jam Jim coming through. Yeah, they're going to try to push Jam Jim away to make sure he can't get onto YYC, and a big gnar into the wall. Follow it up with by a solar flare. That's going to be Jam Jim and a Tout taken off the map. You can't stop the Baron there, Mish, and that's going to be 2 members off the board as the dragon is respawning. Duan just getting back onto the map. Now he's going to have to give this one up too. Soul Point and Baron buff goes over to Omega Gaming Wildcard. They are still in this. They are 3k gold in the lead. They keep finding the fights. Wow, what a great call by Omega Gaming Wildcard to start up that Baron right there. They translate Duan's death into 2 huge objectives now. They're sitting on that soul point, and they're going to tear up this bot side jungle before trying to find the next place to kind of needle away and get pushes going.
Absolutely here. Great plays from both teams going back and forth in this game. 26-28 here in a 30-minute game. This is exactly what you hope for when these teams are back against the wall. They want them to see, or you want to see them rather, take it all the way here, get a 54-kill banger in just 30 minutes here, and it's not over yet. Could still swing either way based on these next few crucial fights.
And you have to think about the burden that is placed upon the engagers on the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard and how well they've been doing their jobs. Remember, Viego and Jinx's power level are kind of locked behind getting an initial kill off so that Jinx gets excited and so that Viego can start stealing bodies. And that's why we're seeing so many people playing so far forward. Right here, I suck, taking a huge brunt of damage from Jam Jim, just hitting them with that charm and dumping as much spells as possible. And so it's really nice to see just how tanky this Leona has become. They are going to continue to get this push mid. Omega Gaming Wildcard really want to grab at least an inhibitor here, and because of that, we might see a fight get forced pretty darn soon.
Yeah, we certainly might here. They are going to have to defend that middle lane up against all of these minions coming on through, and that's going to net a rotation up to the top side for Omega Wildcard. Looking to take out the last of the inner turrets available with the time that they have left on their Baron buff is going to be expiring here pretty soon. We'll see if they're able to actually get themselves an additional turret here, if the defense is just going to be too strong for the side of Michigan. Bringing on in one more minion wave, looking to set on up here. Nightingale has arrived, as has YYC and Hobby. They will be able to get that inner turret. I suck, doesn't find the flank. Axum on the split push, though, is going to go Mega. That's going to make him a lot less mobile. Manages to crunch his way out of there before the slow comes on through from the Karthus wall, and that's going to net a little bit of a split push from the side of Omega. They get some good damage in there. Axum gets coming right inhibitor. Great rotations, great macro play here, pushing and pulling the Umish squad in between those top and mid lanes. They net themselves an inhibitor and an inner turret.
And that inhibitor will stay down as we are about 2.5 minutes away from a deciding dragon here. This Mountain Soul would be really big for the side of Omega Gaming Wildcard, who honestly is getting a little bit outscaled now. That's just kind of the nature of their comp.
Yeah, Axum getting locked down here by that Hextech ultimatum, but is going to go Mega just in time. Goes in, throws down the ultimate to produce a little bit of space, but it just isn't enough. But that is a huge solar flare comboed with the super mega death rocket. YYC and I suck. Turn around the fight there after losing their top laner. They lock down instant. They take him off the map, and they look to close on out the game. Requiem not going to deal enough damage to stop everything. Jam Jim is too low. Second Meganar for Axum goes into the fountain, ends up getting executed on down. Duan is still full HP, but it's too late. The Nexus falls, and Omega Gaming Wildcard advance in the gauntlet.
2-0 victory for Omega Gaming Wildcard, showing why they deserve to be here in the gauntlet itself, Gordo. Incredibly solid plays. Game 1, a little bit of a steamroll, a little bit of a stomp, but when the chips are down and things are close, they're still able to clutch out and play magnificently. Great call on a Baron that led to the push that lasted a lifetime and allowed for them to roll all the way to a victory. Axum pushing and pulling, as you said, grabbing that middle inhibitor and starting to fight off. He may have fell a little bit early there, but that Guardian Angel bringing him right back on into the fray. Incredible to see, great performance, and I'm so excited to see if they will continue to push forward into the playoffs.
What a clutch play there to close on out this game from Omega Gaming Wildcard. They are not the scaling team comp here. When this Aphelios and this Karthus are that strong, it's so difficult for them to play on out these fights, but they just keep finding the picks. And in that last fight, a great solar flare combined with the super mega death rocket just deletes Aphelios off the map and gets them the fight win that they were looking for. We talked about how crucial those picks were. That was the most crucial of them all. University of Michigan JV will be eliminated from the AVL here with this loss. A very well fought series, a great game number 2 to try to keep themselves moving along. But Omega Gaming Wildcard, they proved themselves to be the better team on the day, and they will advance farther here.
And there's just so much to be said about potential matchups in the future. How will Omega Gaming Wildcard fare against some of the other matches that we see in this league right now? We don't really get much of a decision from these other games yet in this series, so things are still up in the air and exactly what the schedule will plan out for. But honestly, right now, if you're Omega Gaming Wildcard, I would just say pat yourselves on the back, take a little bit of time to relax. Don't fret about week number 2 here in the gauntlet. You have pulled off an amazing victory, and frankly, an upset over University of Michigan, and you clinched a really, really solid win.
Absolutely here. It's definitely a big win for the Noxus group. When you're trying to compare relative group size, Noxus 6th, greater than Demacia 5th, at least if this series is any indicator. For any who don't know our playoff format or our play-in format, very in-depth here, just to review, the third and fourth seeds for each of these groups are currently locked in their own series, facing off against one another. The winners of those series will qualify for the playoffs and will play for seeding up against some of the top seeds. The losers of those series will face off against both Omega Gaming Wildcard and whoever wins the other 5th, 6th matchup to determine who will be the final 2 seeds going on through. So doesn't end here. The gauntlet continues for Omega Gaming Wildcard. They will play another elimination match next week, opponent TBD, to determine if they actually do get a spot in that bracket stage of the playoffs.
Yeah, so there's a lot of action to still be had. Week 2 is where everything truly is decided and solidified to determine who goes on into the playoff, but that does not detract from the victories you will see start to flow through here in this first set of games. Incredible plays on either side. Really happy to see University of Michigan, after that demoralizing game 1, bring it back and try as hard as possible, but Omega Gaming Wildcard really demonstrating their strength here.
Yeah, we are joined by I Suck here off the back of a fantastic series. Really happy to have you join us here, my man. And I got to be selfish with question number 1. What's up with the name change from 35701 to I Suck here towards the end of the season? What motivated that one?
I suck. I don't know, man. I kind of ran with the name for a really long time, and the only way to play solo queue was for me to name change, so I could just run it down as hard as I can. And I've been hard hinting it in solo queue recently.
Well, perhaps the change really just comes from coordinated play, because I don't think you've been running it down at all here in the Aegis Vanguard League. In these 2 games, we saw you jump onto really powerful engaged tank champions on the Nautilus game 1 and on the Leona game 2. Do you think that this was something that was planned out beforehand, or did it kind of organically come up through the draft that you decided, hey, I want to be on these champions and I want to dictate the way that these fights play out?
So it usually comes down to the coach. I have zero say in what I play. He gives me like, hey, this looks good here. Is that okay with you? I'm like, oh yeah, man. You're gonna pick it. You're gonna pick it for me anyways.
All right. Well, give it a little deference to the coach there. Definitely at least ended up working out in tonight's series. So in game number 2, things were getting a little dicey there for a little while. You weren't making too much happen with the Twisted Fate pick. The Karthus was getting really strong. The Aphelios was getting really strong. What's the comms like at that point in the game where you're starting to fall a little bit behind? The opponents are starting to scale up and get really strong. How do you guys... how does the shot calling look, and how do you guys steel yourselves to be able to come back and win a game like you did in that game number 2?
Yeah. So after they got the Baron, we were really they were off on tempo on the map. Everyone had different resets. Aphelios and Alvis and Ari were barely approaching into the mid lane, while Arthas and Camille were late, I think. And then we're like, okay, guys, let's just pull the trigger here, and hopefully we can get a good fight out of it. And then we got the Baron off of them like right after the reset.
Yeah, that was a really solid call, and I imagine that the comms and coordination was similar when you guys decided to go for that second Baron, especially after we saw Duon on the Karthus fall. Do you think that your kind of propensity to roam that we see come out here is matchup dependent, or is it just kind of the play style of support that you prefer? We saw you make huge plays, especially in the mid lane there in game number 1 on the Nautilus.
Yeah, it really just comes down to, does my middle laner have CC or does my top have CC, and then I roam accordingly. Uh, game 1 I didn't get to roam as much, but I don't think I had very much impact in the mid game as Leo as I should have, because it's very hard to do anything because of Ari. It's very mobile, but it just really comes down game to game.
Great to hear there. Ended up working out in the end. So you guys now have moved on forward into the next stage of the gauntlet. Still waiting to see how these other series are going to end up, but you're going to be playing against one of Oakland Esports, Rise, HOH, and Nameless Thieves. Out of these teams, any that you've gotten to look at too much here, and anybody that you particularly want to play, or anybody that you particularly want to avoid?
To be honest, I don't remember anyone but Nameless Thieves. and main Steves were actually pretty good. I think we had a good day, so we were able to beat them on the day.
Gotcha.
Alright.
Yeah, you were one of the two people who were able to get a game off of them in the regular season here. Is there anyone before we close out this broadcast that you would like to shout out on your team? Or just like more generally, anyone that you want to call out and say thanks for?
Yeah, sure. My ADC, YYC or Mark, whatever. When we started the team, I was so bad. I was running it so hard every game, but he endured it, and now we're here. We've made huge progress.
Awesome to hear. Glad to see you guys grow throughout the season and glad to see you guys moving on to next week. Best of luck in that one, and thank you for joining us here tonight. Thank you to everybody at home for hanging out with us in tonight's first week of the AVL play-ins. We will be back throughout this week for other Aegis leagues, and we will be back next week for the second phase of that AVL gauntlet with another elimination match to determine who our last couple of playoff teams are going to be. In the meantime, though, that'll do it for tonight. Thank you for joining us once again. And from myself, Nyarko, and Sumalcrum on production, have yourselves a great night.